Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Rain Whalen.
And I'm Betty Crocker.
Is it just gonna be? Fucking cooking stuff from now on?
I don't know. Those are two easy. We've done them before, so.
Yeah. And Marie Callender really cracked me up last week.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh God, what is he gonna choose? Yeah. And also, speaking of last week, so you're back home in Princeton, so yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed last week's episode, because who knows when we'll get to be back in person again.
No.
And here's a little inside baseball. If anyone watched the episode on YouTube, and I texted you about it, at some point I couldn't get the audio and the video, bless you, to sync up. So at some point our audio is 3 seconds off from the video. Dude, I couldn't figure it out. I was like, what happened? And I think I did figure it out what it was, because I did it like I used to do it, like when we used to record in person, is I edited down the audio first, and I think I trimmed it too short.
I see.
But since I had already re-edited it for the audio, I couldn't go back and get the original version. So
cool, man. I get it.
I was like, well, at least it's 3 seconds. Could you imagine if it was like 5 minutes? And there was 5 minutes of like us just sitting there going, like, talking.
Dude, even the 3 seconds, like, I'm surprised we didn't get negative views. Like, that would drive me insane. Like, yeah, no, that's unforgivable. I don't like that. But I, like, don't watch it, man. That would drive me crazy,
Yeah, dude, and I kept being like all like kind of cocky. I was like, no, I gotta figure it out this time. We're good. And then I was like, oh no, I don't have it figured out.
It was just the editing part. You know what I mean? Like, you had the other stuff.
Yeah, but maybe that's a testament to now I'm used to our new version of editing,
right,
where this records both audio and video simultaneously, so I don't have to do as much work anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, I get it. You know what I mean?
But I did have fun last week, man. I mean, the episode here, let me see. Last time I checked, episode's only got 17 views.
It's more than the week before. So
I was gonna say, yeah, more than its previous episode of Andrei Rublev. It literally has double the amount of views.
Yeah, Andrei Rublev is not. It's not for the mainstream. Neither is this, by the way. So.
Well, but I think this episode is going to be, people will at least understand it, especially considering it was a movie made in of itself. It's a period piece.
Yeah.
Considering it was made in 1939, talking about something that happened almost 20 years prior.
That's true.
So, but who knows?
Getting off before you get to talk about Fantastic Four. Would you like to do that first?
Sure. Yeah. So Ashley and I went and saw Fantastic Four yesterday. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I think Marvel did two things that really helped out the movie. One is it's not an origin story, so they kind of hit you like running.
Cool.
So like this isn't really a spoiler. So they're 4 years into being superheroes. So the public knows them. The public knows them as the Fantastic Four, and also setting it in a separate universe, I think, also helps. So that way they don't have to do any callbacks to any of the Disney Plus shows, any of the previous movies.
Right.
And it was great, man. I mean, the chemistry between all four, Pedro, Vanessa, Joseph, Evan, was great. Like I told Ashley, I really appreciated that, like, something about them, they all just kind of gelled together. Like you really believed
Yeah.
like their chemistry. And like the villains aren't necessarily like evil for evil's sake. They're like the Galactus was written really well, and of course that's our boy Ralph Ineson,
Yeah, that's our boy.
who did a great job, and I was very impressed with Ashley. She was like, I know that voice, and then when his name came up in the credits, she was like, wait, wasn't that the Green Knight? I was like, that was the Green Knight. I'm so very proud of you. I was like, he was also in Nosferatu, and she was like, he was? I was like, yeah, he was.
The Witch.
The Witch, yeah, pretty much any Robert Eggers film except for The Lighthouse. Also, I kind of forgot about this. He does have a small, tiny little role in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, it was great. All in all, like I gave it on my letterbox, I gave it 4 out of 5. A little bit for the joke, like, yeah. but also like solid 4. Like I really enjoyed it. Ashley was like, if I could, I would give it a 4.75, and I was like, that's oddly specific. Why? And she was like, because I didn't get to see Pedro Pascal or Joseph Quinn shirtless.
Yep. Hey.
And
priorities, I get it. All right.
And I was like, well, I mean, you got to see Pedro in a tank top, and he's got them pythons out, And she was like, yeah, I guess, But it was great, man. I really think Marvel. Like, I hate the whole thing of like, oh man, Marvel's so back. Because I'm just like, look, they've had some duds, but they've had some misses, but like it's not like they fell off, in my opinion.
Okay.
You and I, of course, have disagreeing views on the whole superhero fatigue.
Yeah.
I don't think there is such a thing. But yeah, I will say though, I learned something really interesting about the mid-credits scene, and I'm jazzed. Like I was already excited when the mid-credits scene happened, and now I learned something new, and I'm like, oh, dude, let's fucking go, bro.
Yeah.
I'm obviously not going to spoil it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not an asshole.
Right.
But yeah, like I was telling you about it. I think you should check it out. I think you and Haley would like it. But
yeah,
I know
we'll check it out for sure. Yeah, man. In terms of like going to the movies, like my next movie, like I'll have to wait for like the perfect time to even ask. But I really do want to go see Eddington. I want to see it pretty bad. And I have to see Weapons. I mean, there's like no excuse. I have to go see Weapons. So yeah, that'll probably be a movie going experience. I might have to sacrifice Eddington just to see Weapons. Like I need to see that before.
Ashley, they played a trailer for Weapons, and Ashley leaned over to me and she was like, "We need to see that."
Oh, looks so.
I was like, "All right,
wait, man."
I was like, "All right." Yeah, we're trying to see Eddington as well. Synergy is doing this free ticket for teachers, and if it's still in theaters, because I don't think it starts until next week. So if it's still in theaters next week, hopefully we'll, fingers crossed, we'll go see it. I'm a little worried. I saw a content creator. I know you know him. I can't think of his username, but he does like a lot of pop culture and movie news.
Sure.
He's got glasses. But anyway, he said something about Eddington that worries me a little bit. I won't repeat everything he said, but like he was like, A24 needs to stop giving him a blank check. Ari Aster, that is. I mean, he praised Ari Aster and loved Hereditary and Midsummer, but he just feels like, I guess maybe the A24 is giving him more freedom, which, you know what, is fine.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about at length about how amazing A24 is with their writers and directors, but he was like, maybe they should, not give him bigger budgets.
Okay. Interesting.
he said the third act kind of hurts the movie rather than helps it.
Well, that's funny because, like, in a way, I agree. I haven't seen anything, so I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I agree with the sentiment that sometimes limitations are better for auteurs or filmmakers with a distinct style. I think
Mm-hmm.
that I saw a video the other day that it was this girl was like, "Please, FX, for the love of God, could you cut Sunny in Philadelphia's budget in half or something? Because, like, you know what I mean? It's not the same." And she's right. I love It's Always Sunny, and I don't think the budget hurts it that much. But with a bigger budget, it is weirder, that they're able to do all this other stuff, and it doesn't feel the same as
Mm-hmm.
like older Sunny episodes. But I agree that the limitations of a budget or of resources can sometimes improve upon a movie and improve upon the director's creativity and can make something better. There's a whole documentary that Lars von Trier and his friend did. I forgot the guy's name. He's also a filmmaker. Called The Five Obstructions, and we've talked about this before. And he has his friend. Lars von Trier has his friend who has this short film that he made in like the late '60s, early '70s. And he said, "I want you to remake this 5 times, and I'm going to give you an obstacle each time." And he said, "Okay." And so the first one was each shot can only be half a second long.
Oh yeah, I think I remember now.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
super choppy and like really sort of off-putting in the way that it's presented. And there was one where it's about like the short film is about like a sophisticated man, right, putting himself together in the morning,
Uh-huh.
and in his routine, and he's very upper crust and very bourgeois, and and so one of the obstructions was to go to a third world country and do the short film, and do the whole thing with the tuxedo and with the extravagant meal in front of starving people.
Holy Jesus.
He kind of cheated, and Lars von Trier was really upset about that because he put an opaque, sort of translucent sheet behind him, so you can kind of see the people behind him.
Uh-huh.
But he's like, "That's not what I asked for," like dude. Lars von Trier is savage, man. He's insane. But anyway, but that being said, I agree with the sentiment. I don't know if I agree with how the movie works because I haven't seen it. But all that to be said, this is the longest intro of all time.
Oh well, I mean, what else would Zach expect by this point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, buddy, so what are we talking about this week?
All right. So this week we are discussing Raoul Walsh's 1939 gangster epic, The Roaring Twenties.
So when Ashley and I came to visit you not last week, 2 weeks ago, you were telling me that you've been getting into like old school gangster films.
Yeah.
So what kind of sparked this whole thing?
It's not necessarily new. It's new that I'm watching more of them, and I'm because me, and you too. You also love gangster films.
Yeah.
Goodfellas, Mean Streets, Casino. I didn't mean to just name Scorsese films. American Gangster. The Godfather, among others. Godfather Part 2, especially. And and I like it. It's fun. So years ago, I watched this documentary that I rewatched for this about the golden age of gangster films, and it was from 1931 to 1945 was like the golden age of gangster films.
Okay.
And I was aware of Edward G. Robinson. I was aware of James Cagney, of course, Humphrey Bogart, duh. And I decided to give these a try. So I watched Little Caesar, which came out. I think it came out before Public Enemy. But Edward G. Robinson, it's incredible, right? The violence is crazy. It's more crazy than you expect. It's so fast paced. I think that's probably what I like about these is that the 1930s gangster films are, in some cases, less than 90 minutes. I mean, they're 80 minutes, 75 minutes. I mean, they're quick, And so they're telling these whole stories in such a breakneck pace, and they're talking so fast, and there's so much gunfire and double crossing and crooked deals and a rise to power and a fall from grace. I mean, it all happens in such a fast turnaround. I just love the vernacular that they're using. I love the cadence in which people are speaking. It's just fun. And I didn't want to do like a Little Caesar, or I guess we could have done Public Enemy with James Cagney. But this one just seems like more of a full-length film, Little Caesar is like an hour and 17 minutes, Like, I feel like maybe we could do it eventually, but I felt like, I don't know if that's like enough. I don't know. Even though, like, in a way it sort of started, it kicked off the, this whole genre. There were silent ones that are fine, they're good. There's one called The Underground, which is said to like set the sort of the tone, the atmosphere, and the pacing of what would then be a modern gangster film without the dialogue, right? So when you add in the dialogue, it's just a whole new ballgame. When you add in the way people are speaking and the talk of a real gangster, like the way someone from the streets would talk to you, is sort of added in with the Edward G. Robinson and James Cagney films of the 30s. Yeah, and I just like the history, I like all of it. So this was a no-brainer. And Criterion just releases.
Yeah. When I was telling over the weekend, we had like kind of like a mini birthday party for my sister-in-law, and I was telling Ashley's pa about it because he loves older films. I thought maybe he may recognize it. He said this was a little bit before his time as well.
Yeah.
But I read him the Criterion description, and he was like, "That sounds really interesting." I was like, according to this, it's widely regarded as the best gangster film ever made. So
yeah.
And you know what? I would give it that title. This, of course, being, I know it was probably a first watch for you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Just like you, I mean, I mentioned it when we did Double Indemnity. Just the same thing. I love the way these people speak. And then getting to really hear like mob speak in the 30s was really cool. With that being said, since we did kind of waste everyone's time with that long intro, so Jeremy, why don't you tell everyone very quickly, what's this movie about?
Okay. So the film is about Eddie Bartlett and in some way George Halley. They were in World War One. They come back from the war. They try to get their lives back on track the way that they were before they left, and they're finding that is sort of impossible. The world has sort of left them behind as they were fighting for their country, and now isn't going to help them piece their lives back together. So while struggling to find a job, um, Eddie starts driving cabs. He accidentally delivers bootleg alcohol to this nightclub, gets caught, and from then on decides that this might be the life for him. And brings his buddy along. I think his name is George. Danny. And brings Danny along with him, and they slowly but surely start a bootlegging operation and start manufacturing and selling illegal booze. And the film frames it in sort of, year by year. Like every couple of years, they'll jump forward into time to see where they're at. Eddie just gets more and more successful as his business grows and grows, as he takes that taxi cab, makes it a fleet of taxi cabs, and a front for his bootlegging operation. He later runs into his old war buddy George as he tries to, and successfully robs his boat that was full of alcohol. They go into business together. They become even more successful. However, with partnerships with criminals, that doesn't really end up going so well, as George finds opportunities to double cross Eddie, and of course Eddie ends up falling on his face, not only with the backstabbing from George and the betrayal, but also the ending of Prohibition in 1929. And with no prohibition means no bootlegging operation, which means no more work and no more organized crime, no more monopoly on this industry. Eddie, who had tried to woo this very young girl and was unsuccessful, finds that his past love and her new husband and child are being threatened by the life he had left behind. And when trying to confront George, who is threatening their lives, he shoots and kills him, but not before. And then soon after, Eddie is shot and killed, and that's the Roaring Twenties. Yeah. And there's a lady named Panama,
who's clearly in love with Eddie.
Clearly, the studio told him to tone down the sexual energy because it's supposed to be unrequited love, not banging on the side. So, like that's not a sexual relationship. It's supposed to be unrequited love,
Yeah. Yeah. So, this is something that, this movie is so interesting in the fact of like, we kind of know a lot of this history, not only from actual history, but also like of other gangster films, talking about sort of how the mob kind of sprouted up in the 20s during the Prohibition era. And what's so interesting is, just like with some of the other mob film or gangster films we've done, Eddie is presented to us, the audience, as sort of an opportunist, a good person, but also he's going to take any opportunity he's got. And you're right, he almost sort of jumps on bootlegging almost immediately.
It seems that way.
Yeah, and then especially when like he decides to go off and do his own bootlegging operation, because he doesn't want to pay $1 to run someone else's booze, so I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
I love the line because at first I didn't know what he was talking about when he's like, I've got a tub of my own. Like, come on, Danny. I'm like, what is he talking about? I'm like, oh, because they're gonna cook it
Literal tub.
in the tub. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I almost feel like now seeing this movie, this kind of set what you said a second ago, kind of set the tone for gangster movies going forward. Especially ones that reflected on how organized crime kind of got started.
Yeah, I mean the tone was pretty much set at this point. In 1939, I mean
Yeah.
it was slowly changing into what we would later call film noir. Um, Especially with like movies like Key Largo and The Maltese Falcon, and where there are gangster elements, but the gangster isn't the main character. He's now a side character, or he's different than what he's being presented as here, right? What I really like about this movie is it's not only showing parts of prohibition that I don't think people really think about or talk about very often, which is the literal manufacturing of these booze. They're not buying and selling booze that's already been made. A lot of the time, it's they have to make it themselves, right? Because after a while, if no one's making it, where are you going to get it? So
Yeah.
I like that it focused on that. I like that. I also like that it showed, a country that's turned its back on its heroes, right? These World War I veterans come back home, and he can't get his life back together. And yes, he's an opportunist, but he's also like, what other options does he have?
Yeah.
He's desperate for work, and he stumbles upon this life of crime, which was his last resort. I mean, it's what he had left to survive. Now, it corrupted him, of course. But,
yeah, of course.
But initially, I mean, it's just like, what else are you going to do? That cab thing wasn't going to work out, probably. And if you find something better, take it. So I really liked that. And I also loved the framing of just moving forward a couple of years, every once in a while with montage. Speaking of the montage, a little bit of fun fact for you. The shot of the drive-by bombing, where they toss like a Molotov cocktail or whatever into that building and it blows up. That's from Public Enemy. It's just a different angle from that shot. So it's from an 8-year-old movie that they threw into this one. Sort of a fun fact. Yeah, I really liked the montage sequences. I liked the news announcer. The visual representation of the crashing of the stock market.
Oh, that was so cool.
Was so cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Especially with the ticker and everything. So cool, man. This movie's has very cool techniques and pretty innovative with the gangster film, because again, it's playing with our sense of time, and in this case, pretty recent time. People lived through this that are watching this. I mean, everyone's going to be like, "Oh, I remember that." I remember when it happened, or whatever. He's based on a real gangster, Eddie. Except for his death. His death was based on another person who died on the steps of that cathedral. The other guy died at home, I think. Anyway. Doesn't matter. So, another thing that these gangster films give you, and that it only works with these certain types of actors, which is, these films sort of introduced the idea of the charismatic anti-hero or these charismatic villains, because they're not good people. James Cagney, he's not a good person in this movie, right?
No, he's really
He
not.
started off that way, but he definitely isn't. He's pretty misogynistic. He's obviously a criminal. He's a murderer, whatever. But the same with Edward G. Robinson. I mean, these guys are so captivating to watch. And I think it's because they're from Broadway. Originally, James Cagney is a song and dance man. So he did a lot of musical theater on Broadway before getting into films. And I think that shows. I think that the sort of gentleness and the fluidity of his motions, how he presents himself it's disarming.
Mm-hmm.
I just love James Cagney. Anyway, how'd you?
Yeah, so so I'm gonna be real. As we've learned doing the show for 6 years, 6 years?
Yeah,
that seems right. All right.
No,
I don't know a whole lot about old Hollywood. So the first time I ever heard about James Cagney, you're gonna laugh.
I will.
You're either gonna be very disappointed in me.
I doubt it.
Or you're gonna be like, that's actually pretty cool. I learned about James Cagney recently, and that was even before you chose this episode. So a little bit of backstory. So how I learned about him. There's a ride at Disney World called Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in a replica of the Chinese theater, because Hollywood Studios, where it's at, is meant to be like a love letter to Hollywood. Well, initially that ride used to be called the Great Movie Ride,
mm-hmm.
where it would take you through essentially a history of film.
Cool.
And they had like animatronics, but they also had a cast member as a tour guide taking you through the different genres and the different eras of Hollywood. And they also had live people come in. So like one of the first areas you would go through is gangster films.
Cool.
And they would have posters on the wall that you would pass by of like Public Enemy and Little Caesar, and which is, I'm also kind of glad you gave me those. And then to your right, they had an animatronic of James Cagney from Public Enemy. And yeah, he's kind of like standing there like in his suit with his white sash on. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I think they were supposed to use a different movie, but they couldn't get the rights to it. So they used Public Enemy. But I was like, that's pretty cool that that Disney did that. Of course, granted, by the time MGM and Disney kind of ended their partnership, I think I told you about this. I don't remember, because Disney and MGM had a partnership, and then when the deal came up for renewal, MGM was like, well, I think it was Disney. Disney was like, yeah, we don't want to renew. We're fine. And so they had to get a sponsorship for the Great Movie Ride, and they got TMC to sponsor it.
Cool.
But TMC wanted to alter the ride a little bit, where they would have audio narration, but that takes you out of the point of going through the movies.
I see.
So I'm not saying Turner Classic Movies ruined it, but I'm also not saying that they didn't ruin it.
Yeah.
Then of course the ride got shut down and revamped, but yeah, so So that was how I kind of learned about James Cagney, because the video essay I was watching, talked about like why they specifically chose Public Enemy, again, for its influential aspect on film as a whole,
Yeah.
but also James Cagney's performance. And so when you told me, when last week, when you said that we were going to do this, I was like, oh, cool. Now I'll get to see James Cagney in motion. Of course, you also gave me a copy of Public Enemy.
Yeah.
So now I can actually see the movie that really, got us to the movie we're talking about today. But yeah, after I finished the movie, I was like, I need to know more about James Cagney. And I read that, he was a Broadway star before, coming over to film. And that, he has this, a lot like Humphrey Bogart, they both have this way of speaking. And again, it's probably the script, but like there's something about his voice, even when Eddie is so deep into the organized crime, and he's not the same Eddie we started the movie with, but there's still something in his voice that kind of, for me at least, lulls you into a false sense of security, like that he's still the same old Eddie. He just has more money this time,
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, man, I was so captivated by this, because we've seen these kind of tropes before of a character bending their morals because they have no other choice, and then being corrupted by that. But there was something so captivating about watching Eddie start off as like, well, this is the only option I have, to like, oh no, I run this town, like, do you get what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I had to say on on James Cagney. The little history lesson of a ride that, that's how I learned about him. That's so sad.
No, not sad. People of a certain age, like ourselves, like with movie stars that, were in movies so long ago, we have to learn about them our own special ways. And, this is also a great example of, if you want to see Humphrey Bogart not be a good guy, watch some of these old movies, because he's in a lot of these. He's in a lot of these old gangster films from the 30s where he's not the main character. He's sort of a side character, or he's the villain, in that documentary, they said that, he kept saying yes to these because his death scenes were so much fun, and he said that audiences just remember how cool my death scenes were, so of course I'm going to keep going,
Yeah, I was going to say, like, when I saw, like, really how despicable George was, I was like, man, wasn't Humphrey Bogart, like, kind of like Peter Fonda, like, seen as like a white knight?
Not till later, I guess, because in a lot of these early films before Casablanca, before The Maltese Falcon, he was the bad guy or a side character,
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. I think this kind of ties into the movie as well, which is, sort of like the history of old Hollywood, and it also kind of ties into an earlier episode this season of Babylon,
yeah, sure.
Which, sorry, I meant to say this at the top of the show. For those of our listeners who only likes to do the audio, our Babylon and Double Indemnity episodes are back up. I kind of just ripped the audio off the off our YouTube. So it has non-copyrighted music. It doesn't fit with the episode, but you know what? It's all good. Those episodes are back up. So
Okay.
yeah, they're out of order now because it doesn't go by, even though I put the episode numbers so they're numbered correctly, it I may add re-upload to it or something. That way people know, because it is out of order. So like it shows that it's posted after our Slacker episode. So it's like Babylon, Double Indemnity, Slacker, instead of being in order. But anyway, I meant to say it at the top of the show, but I forgot.
That's okay. Okay, so what makes this film, I think, so different from the other ones, like your Little Caesars, your Public Enemies, what's another one? Doesn't matter. What makes this film so different is that sort of retrospective aspect that I really liked. Like, to put it into perspective, my Nana was 12 in 1939. Okay?
Oh man.
I know. And so, like, to even like a 12-year-old, I mean, they wouldn't have like the memories of the 20s, like, their parents would have or whatever. But I do like this retrospective aspect of it, where it's. I think the film even starts with like the late 1930s, and then goes backwards and backwards and backwards to 1918, which is World War One, which I like. So the film is even, even putting a spotlight on its contemporary time period. Like, this movie's coming out now, right? But it's going to take place, from 1918 to 1930, but I did like, it was sort of like a fourth wall break, and sort of like taking the audience is like, oh, okay, it's the film is acknowledging that it's coming out in 1939, which I like, and just putting historical context on the actions of the characters, right? Because it has everything to do with the time period that this takes place has everything to do with these characters and their actions and their trajectory. Like, organized crime existed before 1920, but not in the way that we know it today. I think that, obviously, there were crime syndicates that were probably running guns or drugs or whatever, but, putting a ban on alcohol really just got everyone's creative juices flowing. In terms of, well, how can I keep doing that?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. That's a good point, man. Like, that it is so interesting that in our country's time that alcohol was banned and everyone was coming up with creative solutions. Like, okay, well, how do we keep getting this, and then of course, as capitalism is, it's like, well, hey, if you know how to get me that, I will pay you, and then
Right.
And then there we go. The rest is history.
That's right. I like, during the montages, one of them was like, and hip flasks become, really fashionable, and it's just like everybody with a flask and driving. That's crazy.
Dude, I gotta say, speaking, we kind of touched a little bit on some of the really cool visual effects that this film has. The fucking car crash, I was like, how did they pull that off? Because it's a seamless shot.
Yeah.
And you can clearly see people in the driver's seat. and then they just hit that fucking tree, dude. Like, I want to know how they did that.
You know, the answer is probably just they just did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, there's speaking of, you know, we can talk about this for just a brief second. Stunts back then were stunts, all right? There is I cannot tell you how wonderful this documentary is. It's called The Great Buster, and it's the Buster Keaton documentary. I can't recommend it enough. They're talking to Dick Van Dyke. Okay. And Dick Van Dyke famously does a lot of physical comedy with his show, The Dick Van Dyke Show. And he's pretty physical in his comedy and in his acting in, you know, like Mary Poppins, for instance, right?
Yeah.
But he said that he was talking to Buster Keaton once. By the way, to even say that sentence is just incredible. But that's how old Dick Van Dyke is, who at the time of this recording is still alive. I believe he's 100. He asked Buster Keaton, he goes, okay, there's a scene in this movie, I think it's Convict 13, I think. It doesn't matter. But a car drives by, and he grabs the end of the car, and it whisks him away, right? His feet fly up, you know, and just and as a getaway. And he asked him, he goes, how did you do that? Right? And Buster Keaton said, well, the car drove by and I grabbed it. He said that's what it was. That's how I did it. And he's like, that would have ripped anyone else's arm off, you know? But Buster Keaton was just that guy. I mean, he could do anything. And I think the answer to your question is there were people in that car and they hit a tree. You know, all that being said.
Yeah, I want to believe that, but I would hope that they didn't, like, you know, actually do it, but who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, movies like this are just so much fun. You know, I think even this one, it's a little bit longer than the other ones, but it's a breakneck pace, and things are happening so quickly, and it's just so entertaining. There's no lulls really in the film. I would say maybe the musical performances were unexpected. They weren't bad. But like Priscilla Lane's performances at the nightclubs are fine, right? I don't mind them. They again give a sense of nostalgia. They are songs of the time. And this movie actually, number one, coined the phrase the Roaring Twenties. That was not a term people used.
Okay.
Back then, you know, we're taught to think that people in the 20s thought of it as the Roaring Twenties. That's not correct. No, people didn't say that. It's sort of like you don't know when you're in it, but you know after it's done. And so they, you know, this film sort of coined that phrase. And it also kicked off a sense of nostalgia. You know, people didn't go to the movies and watch period pieces to feel that sense of nostalgia, but this one was, you know, about a story that happened so recently that it gave that sense of nostalgia to people that went to the film and to go see it. You know, and especially with the music is of the time. So like when we have these little breaks in the action for musical performances, it's almost a way of putting the audience back into the time that it's set and said, do you remember, you know, what it was like? Do you remember this song? Do you remember where you were when you first heard it? Things like that. To get people emotionally invested more than usual. And so this film really started that idea of, you know, going to the films for a sense of nostalgia. by telling a story of the recent past, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool because I I did not know that the Roaring Twenties were was not coined in the 20s. Like I knew people living in the 20s obviously weren't going around like, oh boy, we're living in the Roaring 20s. I know that, but like
Right.
I always thought that like maybe like in 1929 someone was like, you know, that
He's
that
going,
decade was roaring, I don't know.
he's going to the bank for his 3 cents he still has left, and he's like, "That was pretty great back then." You know, we had it made
Yeah.
in the 20s.
uh
It's
but yeah,
doing the same idea of film noir. Film noir, that term wasn't coined until a French film critic coined it in the 1950s. So
interesting.
that's why it's a French word.
Well, yeah, that would make sense. But yeah, that's interesting that this movie coined that.
Helped. I don't want to say that it absolutely coined the phrase, but it helped grow its popularity because it's like, again, it wasn't a popular phrase, the Roaring Twenties, to define that decade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. That a film kind of helped with that,
Yeah.
especially a film that, again, for those audiences, was so recent in memory for them. But yeah, the movie is so great, and you really feel bad for Eddie, especially when we have the fall from grace section of the movie where he's lost all his money to the stock market and he has to sell his company to George to keep from losing his bank account, and then he becomes a full-blown alcoholic, and it just
Which is ironic because he really didn't drink at all when he was making the booze and selling it. He only became a drunk afterward when it became legal again.
Mm-hmm. Which is also kind of interesting. But it's this really cool. The thing I really liked about it, and it also is sort of, to use a modern term, meta, where Eddie, when Eddie goes to George to beg to back off of Lloyd, he tells him, like, essentially the world has left us behind. Like, we're so caught in the past, the world has moved on without us. And it's so interesting that they would have this line of dialogue, kind of reminiscent of how Hunter S. Thompson felt about with the 60s and that counterculture of the 60s. So it was really kind of refreshing that in a film from 1939 recognized that at some point, like, the world moved on from organized crime in a way.
Yeah, I would say, speaking of the ending, the only downside, I think, to these gangster films of the 30s is how they have to end.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically part of the Hays Code that they could not succeed. By the end of the movie, they have to fall. They have to lose. Crime does not pay. You have to end the movie that way. And it's sort of a bummer because there are films like Little Caesar and films like Scarface, for instance, 1932. It's a Howard Hawks film. It's produced by Howard Hughes. Yeah. And that's actually the Scarface. It was a Universal film, not a Warner Brothers film, but it affected the Warner Brothers films because it was the film that sort of banned gangsters in films to use machine guns for a while. Um, so that's why no one's holding a machine gun or any illegal firearm in this movie, for instance. Even though it would be more realistic if they had a Tommy gun. But Scarface is the reason why that, because it was too over the top, too violent for the time, and a lot of machine guns in that one.
Interesting.
But that one ends sort of a bummer too, because the character was ruined by the ending, but it was like you had to, yeah. It was a real shame. That's like the only downside. It's also like the downside to like The Killing, the Kubrick film, where they just can't win. You're not allowed to win. Crime does not pay. Ever. It's it's in.
Yeah, that is really
with old Hollywood. Those rules are pretty strict. So.
Yeah, that is really, really interesting. That they were so strict about that. But I mean, I guess it makes sense during the time. They really, yeah.
The studio wanted more of Eddie being unshaven and decrepit and down on his luck. They wanted more of that.
Really?
Originally, it's like, yeah, really show that he didn't make it. That he really is at rock bottom. You need to show that. It's like, Jesus Christ, relax.
Like I think the audience is gonna get the point.
Yeah, I think they got it. He's got the fake 5 o'clock shadow on. The rub on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with that being said, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
I am.
Cool. Yeah, the movie was great, man.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this. Again, this sort of period piece for something that only happened. Well, I mean, if we're going from World War I, only happened 20 years ago from the time of when the film was made. So, it is really cool to see that, there is this level of attention and detail to the film. And it was executed so expertly,
I mean, to put it in perspective, that's like someone making a film about what happened in 2005. So.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, my God, dude. Yeah.
That's great.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, man, the movie was rad.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed it, and now I have it on 4K. So
thank God.
I know. Well, buddy, are you ready to hear what we're going to be talking about next week?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. You said it's a good one,
so I kind of threw you off a little bit, mainly because I misread your message.
Oh.
I thought you asked me how excited I was to talk about this movie.
Oh.
Which I was. I was very excited to talk about it. Now the movie that I chose does have a 4K.
Oh.
I just don't have it. So I kind of threw you off a little bit. And once I caught it, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to keep guessing.
Yeah.
And then I got home and I asked Ashley for her opinion. I was like, should we do this movie or should we do this movie? And she's like, and I told her one movie in particular. I gave her a little something, which I'm going to say here in a second. And she was like, oh yeah, then do that one. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Would you like to hear the movie that we would have done?
Sure.
And we will do it because I'm very curious to see it. We would have done Moonstruck.
Oh, interesting.
Moonstruck does not have a 4K that Criterion released, but instead we're doing a movie that's gonna annoy you. And as soon as I told Ashley that, she was like, "Oh yeah, then do that one." I'm like,
So rude.
"Okay."
So mean.
So next week we are discussing Terry Gilliam's 1981 surreal fantasy comedy Time Bandits. I have never seen this, obviously. But you know what, man? We need to add another Terry Gilliam film to the pile.
Okay.
All I know is that it is such a cult classic that Apple TV remade it or reimagined it with Kate Blanchett, or not Kate Blanchett, Lisa Kudrow. I don't know how I got from Lisa Kudrow to Kate Blanchett. And I think
Time.
I think Taika Waititi's in it. Yeah, Taika Waititi's in it in the show. Jermaine Clement.
What's it? Is it called Time Bandits?
Yeah, the show's called Time Bandits.
Well, I guess
yeah.
So I guess I could just like rest easy and just like try to remember that at least it's going to look cool or interesting. So if nothing else, I have the visuals, which will be fun. I'm a little, skeptical about the movie itself, but I'm sure it's going to be fine. I don't know why I'm so. I like Terry Gilliam. I don't like everything he's done.
Well, and and it's got a lot of the Monty Python crew: John Cleese, Michael Palin. I think that's it, honestly.
I still don't know how even Terry Gilliam got into Monty Python.
Yeah, considering he's an American filmmaker, so what was he doing in London?
I know, it's so bizarre to me, but it's cool that he's in it. I mean, it's not, I'm not saying it. But okay, Time Bandits. Right.
Yeah,
the Time Bandits is cool because it has a slipcover and it's lenticular. I think.
Yeah, I bought the movie and then Criterion announced 4K, and I was like, well, I'm not rebuying it. No. Especially because I have made the determination with the Criterions that if the 4K has new box art, it's a possibility. But if it doesn't, I'm not rebuying it.
In some cases, the box art is worse for the 4K, in my personal opinion.
Hot take.
For example, my Blu-ray for Night of the Living Dead is super, super cool. It's a digibook, and it's got 2 discs or whatever, and you can fold it out, and it looks really neat. The other one, the 4K, is a snap case. So.
What?
Yeah. So.
That's so interesting. I want to know how they do that, because you told me the same thing on Lost Highway. You have the Blu-ray of Lost Highway, and it's a snap case. I have the 4K, and the 4K is a digibook.
Oh, I have the 4K.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Of Lost Highway. Yeah.
Did you rebuy it? I could have sworn you told me. No, you told me you learned about the Blu-ray being just a snap case.
I saw the Blu-ray snap case. But I was surprised that they upgraded Night of the Living Dead, but they downgraded the packaging, which I thought was really interesting.
That is really interesting, especially considering to use a last season episode, La Samurai, when they upgraded the 4K, they just upgraded the artwork, but maintained the snap case. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess we should get jobs at Criterion.
I think we should.
Yeah. But cool, man. Who knows? Maybe you'll like Time Bandits, and you'll be like,
it's gonna blow my mind. Holy shit! What is this thing on my life?
You're gonna be like, dude, we need to do a watch party now. We gotta watch the show. But yeah, cool, man. Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this episode on the Roaring Twenties, and we'll see you next week for Time Bandits.